Welcome, everyone. It's so great to see all of your faces. Um, Everyone on the call, I do believe that I have met, but I'm Carly Dietrich. I'm Tigger House Foundation's Addiction Navigator. I'm also the Student Alliance Coordinator. We have Carla, our Chief Development Officer, and Amy Thomas, our Assistant Director of Development. I'm not going to talk too long just because I really want to, my really, really good friend, who I call Allie, is here, is going to present, but she is Dr. Alison Chaney, and I am very happy to introduce her all to you. I just want to say thank you to all of you for joining, and I'm going to kick it off to Allie, who's going to share her screen with us. She has some fun things planned. And she will get to know all of you a little bit so you can introduce yourselves.
Wonderful. Well, great. Thank you so much for being here tonight, and really just excited to be with you all. Carly, can you see my screen?
Yeah, we're good.
Good. All right, wonderful. So Zoom is a really neat functionality. Some of you may be super familiar with it by now, which is really helpful. And then for those of you who are getting to learn a little bit more about it, I'll teach you your first Zoom exciting feature of the evening called annotation. So a great way to get to know all of you. We can, chat with each other in the background. We can also use the stamping feature. So I just would love to get to know all of you. And so if you could share with me, it looks like your names are in the participant list, but in the chat, share with us, maybe a favorite hobby of yours. And if you want to add another fun fact in there, like what you had for dinner or something, go for it. So wonderful, rich cooking for you. Fantastic. So yeah, keep putting things in. Nothing for dinner yet. Uh-oh, I'm in between you and dinner. That's not a good thing. And then why don't we also stamp on the screen? So some of you may be familiar with the stamping tool. So in the Zoom bar where you have the option of like stopping your video, starting your video, you can pull up the participant list there. There's a pen symbol and it says annotate. And if you click on annotate, you'll see that there's an option to stamp and there's a check mark. And you can pick the stamp that you want to select, like a heart or a star. And you can even select the color and the format feature and go ahead and stamp on the screen how you're feeling right now. And it should be anonymous, so no worries about that. If you stamp on the screen and just let us know how you feel, it would be great to see. So we have somebody who's excited. I see the first stamp is the heart there. Great. Others, feel free to stamp away. How are you feeling right now?
I'm just going to raise my hand and say that I'm totally lost because I was writing something in the chat.
No problem.
So if you could possibly repeat how to do the stamp, I'd really appreciate it.
I love it.
Of course, I would love to. And keep speaking up like that when I'm moving too fast or if you need something. So in the toolbar where you can select to start your video, stop your video, mute, there's a feature called annotate. And if you click on annotate, you can then select stamp. There's like text, draw, stamp, select stamp, and you can choose if you want a heart or a check mark or a star. And then you put your cursor on the screen on which emoji you want to stamp based on how you're feeling. So I see so far that there's goofy, happy, excited.
Okay, just put a thumb up.
Great, nice reaction, Bridget. You're using those reaction features. Fantastic.
That's like one thing I haven't used on Zoom.
Yeah,
so
I love this.
Informative.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, and you all, as we're going throughout, feel free to use any of these. I love the chat too. So how fun, like Bridget, you were a Viking dragon slayer for Halloween yesterday. Christian, you play guitar. Awesome. So do I. I play in my church band.
Right. It's amazing.
Yeah. And cool. So we've got some people who like to exercise and cook. Ooh, leftover ziti. It's almost better the second day around, right? Ooh, pizza. True. Now delivered. Christina, can we come to your place? For some pizza? Oh, fun. So organizing and traveling, super fun. And Tim, I think you can rename yourself if you want to. If anybody wants to change your name in the participant list, what you can do is when you go up to that toolbar and select participants, it should bring up the participant list. And then if you scroll over your name, you can also click more and hit rename. And then you can type your name if you want to be called by a nickname tonight or something else. You can rename yourself in that participant list. So feel free to do that. Exactly. That's Lizzie, not Tim. I knew that. Fantastic. Good to have everybody here tonight. I am Alison Chaney. Walling is my maiden name. Chaney is my new married name. I got married March 14th. So it was the last day before everything shut down, the last event at the church, the last dinner at the restaurant.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how excited I am to be with you all tonight. So hopefully you'll get something out of this and I don't bore you too much. I tried to build in some engagement throughout like this. So just really glad to get to know all of you. You'll get to know me a bit more because the story that I'm going to share tonight is, going to pretty much reveal who is behind the curtain here. And you can ask me any questions. I'll try to answer as honestly as possible without, calling anybody out or creating too much drama. So feel free to just participate, ask questions, and we're good to go. I'm going to clear these annotations right now so that we can then just move on to the next slide. So let's see here. See if we can advance this guy for us. And sometimes on my PowerPoint features, I don't always get what I want. Are you still seeing my screen?
We are.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, good. Just trying to get it to advance the slides right now. Yep, I exited the annotations bar, so we should be good on that front. And then you know what I'm going to do is just reshare my slides in a different format. And I think that that's going to help out.
Perfect.
Okay.
I'm just going to call out some people while we're waiting. Christina, very happy for you to be here. Christina is Mrs. New Jersey American, and really awesome to have you here tonight. Bridget, we're excited to have you here. If anyone wants to share something about themselves, jump right in. This is, meant to be conversational, interaction. So just chime right in because that's what I do.
Perfect.
So feel free.
Yeah, does anybody want to say anything before I move on? Feel free to just come off. Yeah, who is that?
Let's see. Is Maddie, are you still on here?
Yes, I am.
Try to call out some of the students. Did you dress up for Halloween?
I did not dress up for Halloween, but I did dress up on Friday because at school we had the seniors got to dress up, and me and my friends dressed up as different characters from a TV show, The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody from when we were little.
Oh, that's awesome.
I said there's Orwin, and I was a janitor, so I had to wear a suit thing and boots.
That's so much fun. I love it.
Very fun.
That's
awesome.
Really cool.
Gotta love it. Well, hey, we can all dress up and pretend to be somebody else. And one thing I'm going to talk about today is being super authentic. So I'm going to be authentic with all of you and just share a little bit about my story and how I got to where I am today. And hopefully it inspires you a little bit. So I'm going to start with, a little story. So this is a picture of me and my dad when I was little. And the story that impacts me the most today is the relationship that I had with my dad and how it definitely played a role in getting me to where I am in my career and also where I am in my character and who I am. And so my dad and I, we were super tight, super, super close with one another, adored him. And growing up, I would, follow him around like a little puppy dog. We would, build things in the garage together. We go to Home Depot, have a lot of fun. And a part of the journey growing up with him was knowing that he had a bit of a struggle with addiction and with alcoholism in particular. And so just like one of the most brilliant, colorful people that I ever met. And to see and watch him struggle, especially as a child, was really hard because even as a young person, we know when our parents are struggling. We know if there's something bigger and deeper going on. And so I wrote him a letter when I was probably about like 10 or 11 years old. And in that letter, I just asked him to please, like, I love you and I want you to get better. And will you consider getting healthy for me and for us and for yourself? And, would you maybe go to AA or would you, and so I really just, it took a lot of courage to muster up writing that letter. And I shared it with him, and he was very honest in return. And he said, "Hey, Al, come here. I got to talk to you." And pretty much shared with me, like, I can't do it. I'm an alcoholic. I always will be. And I can't do it. And it felt like rejection. It felt like a lot of deep pain. And it was something that I struggled with, and probably, still it'll creep back in here in my adult life, wondering like, why couldn't he do it? What was wrong? And everybody has their own journey. And so what I learned from that journey, and he excelled so much in his life. Like, he had his own business, and he raised a great family. He raised my sister and I. He adored my mom and loved my mom, and was a great husband. And of course, he was challenged too. And so, and just thinking about what does that all mean, and what does that mean for me and who I am today? It means that I could be inspired by this, or I could be brought down by it. And I sought to lean in to the challenge and be inspired by it. And so I always knew from a young age that I wanted to be a doctor of some sort. I thought I wanted to be a medical doctor. I wanted to help people. And I think a part of that drive to help people was because I couldn't help my dad. And so where I can help people, I want to try to make a difference. And so I had this goal to inspire others to continue to be inspired, and be inspired not just by the things that are going great, but be inspired by pain and suffering. And so that's a part of the message tonight that I want to share with all of you, is that, if we're constantly chasing after comfort and what's going to make us happy, and what's going to check the next box for ourselves, you're in for a rude awakening. I was in for a rude awakening, thinking that seeking comfort was going to give me the answer. So for all of you, I'll share more about what that means and what that looks like in my journey of how I got to where I am. But a question I have for you is, what inspires you? So feel free to type it in the chat. Have you watched an inspiring movie lately? Is there somebody in particular who inspires you? But what inspires you? And go ahead and type it in the chat. And if anybody wants to come off mute and share, I'd love to hear. What inspires you? Awesome. Family. People overcoming adversity. Yeah, Bridget, fantastic. Yeah, people who have the courage to reach out for help, making a difference. Yeah, growing your family and marriage. Nice. Parents, family. So much of it is around relationships, isn't it? Oh, your dad and your brother. Fantastic. Does anybody want to come off mute and just share a little bit more about what you put in the chat? Perhaps a student.
So I'm Anna, and I can elaborate on what I wrote. So I wrote family in my chat box, and I've seen, especially through the uncertainty of the coronavirus and a lot of strange occurrences that have happened to my family in the past year, watching everyone persevere and have this high level of resilience despite obstacles has been so inspiring for me, and has shown me like true colors of courage and how I can utilize those kind of
That's so awesome, Anna. Yeah, and the people around us are so important and critical. I'm going to, make a mention of that later about just the people who we spend our time with is really critical and key. So glad to hear that. And thanks for sharing, Christina, about your late cousin Lisa. I'm so sorry that you lost her. Yeah. Wow. Beautiful. Well, let's just take a moment to honor all these individuals in our lives and try to carry a legacy forward, a legacy of strength and resilience and hope that we get from all of them. So for me, it's love, pain, and suffering. It's hope in the unseen. There's so much that we don't see that is out there, and I can know and sense it, that it's real. And stories of triumph, right? So those are just a couple of examples for myself. And so, our stories help create context and texture in our lives, and the stories of suffering and pain and then triumph and overcoming can help others as well. And I know that just being brought to Alateen when I was 12, my mom brought me to Alateen. It was a support group for friends and family members of people who struggle with addiction. And that was a really safe space because it was for young people like myself who had a chance to share stories, and not in a way to gossip or criticize, but just as a way to gain hope, to gain experience, strength, and hope in times of challenge. And so I just want to share with you that you're never too young to dream big, and you're also never too old to dream big either. So keep dreaming. And my dream was to make a difference and to help others. And so I'll share with you a little bit about what that looks like. But I thought maybe being a medical doctor could be it. So I'll share with you what it ended up turning out to be like. And in particular, this idea to just never give up. And this is my dad. So this was, I think, my 8th grade or 6th grade dance, something like that, the daddy-daughter dance. And after he passed, there was stuff that he left behind. And one of the items that was left behind was one of those quotables magnet, and it was never, ever, ever give up. And so I felt like that was a message from him to me saying to never give up. And so just keep persevering. If you have a dream on your heart or a calling, go after it and write it down. Paint a picture of it if you need to. I even painted a picture of like myself in the future, and the house that I painted in the background looks just like the one that I'm living in today. Like just, use those visioning skills, use that call to the future and capture it, and don't let go. Keep going. Never give up. So for me, how did I dream? I dreamed big. I was like, you know what? I want to help people. And there are so many people who need help. But a guiding question that was really neat for me, and one for you to think about, is where do your talents, your skills, your deep gladness meet with the world's greatest needs? And that's a part of the answer in your career and in your journey. So there's a whole huge gaping wound and hole in this world. As you can see, as you look in the news, as you look around you, there are so many people with needs not being met. And then there are so many of you who have unique talents and skills and character and personality that are so especially fit for particular unique needs of individuals. So I was on a pursuit to figure out, what do I have to offer, and what does the world need, and where does that come together? And it doesn't have to look the same at any given point in time either. So for me, 10 years from now, I might be doing something different because my gifts or my skills start to evolve and change. And what's neat about you and in this life is that, in this world, you could probably have 20 jobs before you, move on, or 20 pursuits and endeavors and dreams. And then keep in mind, where are there doors closing? Rather than viewing them and receiving them as rejection, think about it as just a sign and a signal that was not meant for you. And there's probably something bigger and greater and better right on the other side. So keeping in mind that when things don't work out, there's probably a bigger, greater reason why. And you'll find out later on. You just might not know in the now. And I'll share with you a little story of what that looked like for me. But in particular, I wanted you to pay attention to these three components of how you understand yourself and what you have to offer to the world. And for me, I needed to do this same type of journeying. Well, what competencies do I have? The head. If I were to think about, I'm not so big on history and facts. It doesn't energize me, doesn't get me too excited, but I really appreciate science and psychology. And so like competencies that are deep in there in my mind, perhaps there's subjects in school that you find really interesting, fall into somewhat of that head bucket. And then there's the heart. There's what are you being called? What energizes you? What drains you? What do you definitely make sure that you don't want to do? But in particular, also, what do you have faith in? What do you believe in? There's probably something that's calling you and drawing you into something bigger and greater. And then there's the hand, the skills, and the tools. And those you can develop over time. You can also develop your head competencies over time. And you can even also cultivate a greater sense of faith and a softer heart for helping and fulfilling needs of others. So all of these are workable and changeable. They are not fixed. If any of you may be familiar with fixed and growth mindset, they teach that in some of the school curriculum. It's the idea that we're not static, we're not fixed in our set of competencies, skills, and abilities. There's something called neuroplasticity. It's that our brains are constantly changing and evolving. And when our neurons inside of our brain, those synapses that are firing, when they fire, they wire. So when you think about something and you repeat a thought, it wires a new wiring in your brain and gets stronger, kind of like how a muscle gets stronger. So what you think about and what you do also really matters, because what you practice and what your habits are only going to get stronger. So that's why I'm so worried sometimes about the screens and being on our phones, because if that's the regular constant exposure and interaction we have with the world, that's going to get really strong. But then what about the people skills of just being in person with somebody and really listening and paying attention with your eyes, with your ears, and being in the moment? So I would just encourage you to pay attention to how are you using your time? How are you spending, even just the way you think and what you're doing with your hands and your skills. Get out there, try to do something different and build new habits that are healthy and that are good for you and good for the world. All right. So I want to share with you, this is just a journey of my career. I thought I wanted to be a medical doctor. I got into pre-med at NYU and I was, studying, and I was anxious like a cat on a hot tin roof. Anybody here struggle with anxiety a little bit here and there? It's tough, right? Like I just grew up with knots in my stomach. I'd go to school. My mom would have to pick me up because my stomach would be a mess. I just was always anxious. And so actually when I went to pre-med, that wasn't really the best fit because I was so scared and so nervous and so stressed. So I thought, okay, maybe I could still get my doctorate, but maybe in something different, and I can still help people, but maybe doing something different, right? So I kept journeying and trying to figure out what that could be. And so I thought, let me go work for a well-oiled machine business after college, and I can learn what it's like maybe to have a business, and I can have my own business one day. So I worked for Goldman Sachs, a big investment bank, and saw how they run and how, they seem like a pretty well-oiled machine. But I realized quickly, and this is where I want you to pay attention to your gut sense and your gut intuition, it didn't quite match my values. So get clear on what are your values. There's neat inventories online, like a values inventory or a values questionnaire. Get clear on what your values are. They can change over time. They don't have to stay fixed, but get clear on what your values are. And then try to follow and identify being called to different pursuits, opportunities, projects that are aligned with your values. And so then I found out that I love helping people still. And when I was at Goldman, I saw that there was a chance to teach and coach and train, and that maybe that world was where I could add value. And so I'm not shy, obviously. So teaching and being in front of a room and things, wasn't difficult for me. And I also just wanted to help people get from where they are in their life to where they want to be in the future. Now, bridging that gap from where people are to where they want to be typically involves some form of coaching or some type of teaching. And so that's how I landed at graduate school. And I prayed for this, guys. I didn't even believe in God yet. I knew there was something bigger out there. But my mom gave me this book. It was a prayer book, and it had different sections of life, like work and relationships and romance and friends. And on the bus ride from the Upper East Side down to Wall Street every morning, I would use the prayers in the work section. And they were prayers like, God, deliver me to my passion. Help me play big when others try to make me play small. Deliver me to your will for me, all these fun things. And then it unfolded. I started meeting people who were coaches and trainers, and I asked them to lunch, etc. And it was just a great, neat way to search and find. So I encourage you to just keep searching, and keep asking questions, whether it's to something bigger or if it's to other people. But I would take people out to lunch and interview them and things like that. And it was just a great way just to see what's out there. So here I am today. I now teach at Columbia University as an adjunct assistant professor, and I teach coaching and strategy and leadership. And then I also have my own business, and I do management consulting, which means that I go inside of organizations and I work with executives and I help them become better leaders. And not to say that I know it all by any means. I facilitate a process to help people learn. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about what the culture will say we want and need in order to be successful. And that's often what leaders get tripped up on as well. And then hopefully it'll help you in return. So I'm going to share with you just a little bit about what that looks like. Popular culture and media will tell us to love ourselves first. You can't love anybody else until you love yourself first, right? How many of you have heard that, right? There's something to be said about it. And I also want to tell you that there's a lot more to it than just that. So yes, we need to know what love is, but to understand love and what it means to love ourselves typically doesn't mean what we think at face value it means. It doesn't mean just to give ourselves what we want and to make sure that we're happy. I'll tell you more about what I think it means and what this journey has helped me unfold. But the popular culture also with like the selfies, right? Just taking selfies and pictures of ourselves. Oh, we just love ourselves. That's the culture today. There's also do what makes you happy, right? With those like features and then also just prove how special we are. Get an Instagram feed and pop things up about ourselves constantly. Oh, look at me, look at me. And that's normal. So I'm not knocking on any, any of us here. It's just that this is what's normal now, right? But at the same time, how is that going to help others? So I challenge us to think about that. There's a way I see on Instagram, there's neat doctors who share fun things that can help other people. Great. We just need to have a really smart hat and have discernment about how can the culture today help us help others, not just make ourselves feel like our egos are stroked and that our buckets are full so that we can go take a nap. Right? Okay, I'm going to pause there for a second and I'm going to see any reactions to that. What do you guys think? Does this make sense? Are you offended? How do you feel?
Well, what's interesting is that I've actually reviewed my Instagram for a week, and then I reviewed Facebook for a week, and then I said to my husband, none of this depicts what is going on in my life.
Huh.
And I said, do you know that it was actually the week that I helped my brother get into rehab. I was at a funeral. It was just so nothing to do with what was really going on in my life. So I think that's a really good exercise to review what you've posted in a week, and it really doesn't depict how you're feeling or what happened. So
Fascinating.
kind
Thanks
of
for
like
sharing that.
like a message to check in on your friends. What's happening on Facebook and Instagram is really not what's happening in their lives. So how do you guys, what do you think about that? Oh no, Bridget, you had your hand up.
Yeah. You're good? Or do you want to share? You're on mute, so I just can't hear you, Bridget.
Yeah, I just have to say, I absolutely loved you talking about the love myself first thing. And that's not my experience of how I found myself. I actually found myself through the service of helping others. Which can be sort of, it sounds very counterintuitive to at least what we maybe like a lot of self-help books and things like that. So it just wasn't my experience. Of course, you have to love yourself, but I learned to love myself through getting outside of myself and actually helping other people and perhaps giving myself perspective, and just not being caught up in me. And I found myself that way. And that's how I found happiness. And when I am in a bad place, for me, the quickest way to get out of it is just to do something to help someone else, something small. It could be nothing. Just call someone. How are you doing? Check in. And yeah, it's just, that's my experience. So I love that you said that and not the opposite. Because you do hear that a lot, and it's just, I mean, it's not my personal experience the other way. So thank you.
And thanks for being honest and sharing your experience on that too, because we all have different journeys, and I don't want to assume that I know the answer by any means, but we each have a set of experience to that I think could be helpful for others. Great. The other thing that I want to share is that social science research tells us that those things that I just listed are actually narcissism. And I don't know if some of you are familiar with narcissism, but it's actually, there's a spectrum, but it's a personality disorder that's found in the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistic Manual for Psychological Disorders. And a lot of what our culture is promoting is actually disorderly thinking. And so self-centeredness is a mark of narcissism. Being exhibitionist, this selfie culture is narcissistic. Being self-satisfied and self-indulgent to just do what makes us happy and do what feels good is also narcissistic. Not being non-conforming and thinking that we're special and having an addiction to feeling special is also a form of narcissism. And being impulsive, like that instant gratification, which we get all the time, because society makes it possible for us to get what we want most of the time, is also an indicator of narcissism. So I think as a culture, you know, if you want to stand out and be different from the rest of your peers, and you really want to make a difference, it's cool to not be a narcissist. And it's cool to take care of others and to put others first and to help them. So I'm just going to share with you, you know, why does this matter? Why does this matter that we pause and reflect on what we're thinking and how we're showing up in the world? Because guess what? School doesn't teach us this. And that's something that I always was so fascinated by. I was like, I thirst and long for this. When I was in high school, I wanted a character development class. I wanted, you know, mentor and people to inspire me and show me how to live life in a healthy, productive way that, you know, was outside of the school curriculum. So you're not going to get a lot of this in school. And often it's too late to find out, because we're so far into our adulthood and we don't even realize the water that we're swimming in. So kind of like a fish in its own water, the self-awareness can be lost. Usually what it takes is some type of disorienting dilemma, some type of, you know, big event, life event that happens that just shatters our assumptions and what we think about the world. And for me, my dad, you know, when he died when I was 28, that was my lowest point in my young adulthood. And it was when I laid on my back in my apartment on the Upper West Side and I didn't want to live. And I had the highest level of anxiety. I was depressed. And I was even like going to Columbia and, you know, like the circumstances around me, I had all these things going for me, didn't matter. I was so desperate and devastated that I called out and I said, God, if you're out there, help me. You know, show me who you are, help me. And I kid you not, within a few hours, I went out for a walk and there were a couple of strangers on the street who just asked me a question while I was sitting on a bench. And they said, hey, you know, they were asking me some questions and I was like, giving them directions or whatever. And then I said, well, where are you going or where are you coming from? And they said, church. And I was like, oh, really? I was like, you're not going to a bar? Because there were all these sports bars around and everything. And they said, no, we're going to church. And I was like, oh, they're like, do you want to come? And I'm like, oh, really? Like, and I had realized that just a couple hours earlier, I asked for God to help me and to show me. And so I went to that, I went with a couple of people and went to that church service. I never saw them again, but it changed my life. And so since then, I saw that there was hope. There's something bigger. There's something greater out there. And I just encourage you, you don't have to believe in God like I do. I just encourage you to seek something bigger and greater. And I was on a pursuit from the time I was 18 till 28 to figure out what was that something greater. And for me, I found that it was a higher power. It was who I call God. And so for me, I just encourage all of you through my story, hopefully it helps a little bit, that you have a choice. You don't have to react immediately. You don't have to go to the food or go to the Instagram or go to exercise or go to sex or drugs. You can take a moment to pause and respond. And believe me, I've done all those things. So all those things that I just mentioned, they don't work. And they burn out really quickly. And instead, you have a choice for how you want to show up in your life. And all those mini choices that we make on a daily basis, each and every one of them add up to what become our life. And I just encourage you to choose wisely. So what would it mean to choose wisely? And then I'll wrap it up. Is to respond with humility. What does humility mean? I'll tell you what that means. And then respond with confidence. And what does that mean? Not in popular terms. So first, just quickly starting with humility, Bridget summed it up, right? It's not thinking less of yourself, but it's thinking of yourself less. And so think of others, put others first, volunteer, spend some time connecting with and helping people in need, ask curious questions. Don't place yourself in the rung above those that you're serving either. Learn from them. They probably have much more to share with you than you might even think that you have to share with them. And express gratitude wherever possible. Like, we're not entitled to what is given to us. The light that I have in this room right now could be taken away by a storm in an instant. The food I have in the refrigerator tomorrow could be gone in an instant. We take so much of life for granted. So to be grateful is really important. And then confidence. What do I mean by that? Well, self-esteem, we often think is putting ourselves in some type of rung of a ladder. Oh, well, if I look at the rest of the world, look at how great I am. I've got this, I've got that. And that's boosting the self-esteem. It's making me feel better than others. Self-esteem is not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about esteemable acts. And my sister taught me this, that self-esteem is really more about esteemable acts that build up who we are and build up our character. And so use your gut sense. Have confidence in knowing what's right and what's wrong, knowing that it's important to look and help for others, that friends matter, who you spend your time with. Spend time with people who are honest, pure, lovely, kind. Think about the words that come out of our mouths every day. Words are like toothpaste. As soon as they come out, it's really hard to get them back in the tube. So be careful, and everything we say has an impact on others. And also what we think shows up in our actions. So if we ever do like an audit, like Carly did an Instagram, Facebook audit, do a thought audit. What are the thoughts in my mind on a daily basis? Just capture, like, what were the top 4 thoughts I had in my mind? Are they honest? Are they true? Are they pure? Are they lovely? Are they kind? Are they trustworthy? If not, then take a chance to throw those ones out and replace them with something good. Okay. And then lastly, just, I hope you got this message from my story, that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So there's so much more out there that we can't quite capture, and long for that, go after it, and have hope and faith that there is truly something better and bigger. And it's not an immediate like on our Facebook page. It's not, being a certain size or a weight on the scale. It's not having an attractive partner. It's not getting the big house or getting the great job.